But we start this hour with President Obama's final State of the Union address. The president giving the speech before a joint session of Congress on Tuesday night. He says this year's speech will be different, focusing more on his legacy and vision for the future than legislative goals for his last year in office.
Not just the remarkable progress we've made, not just what I want to get done in the year ahead, but what we all need to do together in the years to come. The big things that will guarantee an even stronger, better, more prosperous America for our kids. The America we believe in.
We're joined now by Michael Waldman, who was director of speech writing for President Clinton. He's now the president of the Brennan Center for Justice at the NYU School of Law. Michael, thanks for being with us here today. And so what has been said, at least by the White House, is that this will be a different speech in this 8th year for him, his 8th time. How might it be different than that arc of State of the Union speeches, at least from your experience?
Well, I'll believe that when I hear it. These speeches, by their very nature, are always something of a laundry list. And I would expect that while they may be saying, you know, my fellow Americans, I promise this time it won't be boring. The fact is, by its nature, it's a set of policy goals for the country. And as many people don't realize, it's actually required in the Constitution, although it's not required that it be delivered in person. And it is still the one time every year when people get to hear their president, the person elected by the whole country, say what direction things ought to go. So I actually hope there's some policy meat on issues like gun violence, on criminal justice reform, on political reform, and not just nice words.
And so how did that change for you, Michael, as you were working with the Clinton administration and moving forward as the years went by, and how the tone changed, how policy directive changed?
Well, it matters a lot whether the Congress is of your own party or divided or hostile. It matters a lot what the context is out in the country. And of course, they even moved this speech earlier to be before the Iowa caucuses, because this is when the spotlight is still on President Obama. But the audience is not just the members of Congress who jump up and down and applaud, but the whole country. It would be a big mistake for this president or any president to be limited just by what they think they can get passed through this subcommittee chair or that caucus. Now, it is the case that this time there still are some measures that could move through Congress even with bipartisan support. There is, for example, bipartisan criminal justice reform legislation that the president supports. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if he talks about that. The gun issue, where we know he's going to talk, is something where he's very likely to be setting up the obstinacy of the Congress as a foil to what he wants to talk about.
So let's bring our panel, who has been here over the past hour. Senior editor at the Federalist, Molly Hemingway, Real Clear Politics, Caitlin Huey-Burns, and Washington Post opinion writer and MSNBC contributor Jonathan Capehart. So, you know, what Michael's teed up for us here is there's still some policy opportunities here for the president, despite what the White House is saying, and that, no, this will be different than previous speeches.
I don't think there are that many policy opportunities. I mean, the only thing worse than a typical interminable State of the Union address is an interminable State of the Union address from a lame duck president with only 40% approval and a Congress that's just willing to wait him out. Plus, he's really signaled that he's not that interested in working with Congress so much as just doing executive action. So I don't think he has that much to talk about.
Okay.
I think what's really key about this speech, though, is teeing it up for this election year. I think his goal should be to really energize Democrats. He knows it's his legacy, but also the legacy of his party. It's a very tough election, setting goals that he wants to see, perhaps throw some things for Hillary Clinton and other Democrats down the ballot. What's also important to remember is what comes after State of the Union. You have a Republican debate the next 2 days later, and then you have a Democratic debate on Sunday. Guarantee this will be
an opportunity.
And to build on what Caitlin was just saying, the other thing that we know about this president is that, he'll set things up in terms of the election. He'll try to give a boost to the Democrats and whoever the nominee will be. But also, this is a president who goes beyond party in terms of his vision for the country. And so as his last State of the Union address in the last year of his last term, I won't be surprised if we hear the president outline a vision of the country that goes beyond him, no matter who the president is from whatever party. And that when the president speaks in those words, in that language, that's when he really brings the party to the country together. We know about Barack Obama because of that keynote address he gave in 2004 at the Democratic Convention for then nominee John Kerry, when he talked about no red state America, no blue state America. He unified the country and catapulted himself to a national star into the White House. And I would be very surprised if he didn't use this State of the Union as an opportunity to do that again.
And what's interesting is this is obviously such a polarized, in some ways bitter time. There's a lot of roiling anger, but in a lot of ways the country's doing really well and better over time than it was certainly when he started. And one of the things he can do for his own party, but really for the country, is to try to inject a note of, hey, wait a minute, unemployment is at 5%. So many positive social trends.
And Michael, I was talking about it earlier this morning. The economy, look at the employment report, you look at all the key indicators, CPI, you look at consumer confidence, and in previous cycles, it's the economy. Yet it does not seem like his party is hitting that note in grand ways as might have been done in the past.
Well, it's a challenge for anybody in politics, for a president or a candidate. On the one hand, you don't want to look as if you don't understand that for many, many people, wages and their own economic station has not improved, even as the overall economy has. This has gone on for decades. And so it can sound tinny and false to just be roaring about morning in America. On the other hand, the broad positive trends, and you want to make it so that people can participate in that growth, is something, it would be a political mistake for the Democrats to run around saying, oh my God, things are terrible, because the voters are much less likely to give them another term in office if they're buying into that narrative as well.
And that's where you see Republicans on the campaign trail picking up when it comes to economic issues. It's about personal security, but also national security. I mean, because there are signs of the economy improving, they have focused so much on national security and foreign policy and terrorism, because that's really, at this point, is what is at the center of voters' minds right now.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Michael Waldman, we could talk with you all day, all night on this topic, but we'll have that opportunity in the coming week, no doubt. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And a reminder that you can watch Tuesday night State of the Union right here on MSNBC. Our special coverage starts at 8 Eastern Time that evening. President Obama spent the week leading up to his final State of the Union by redoubling his efforts to enact stricter gun safety measures, signing a slate of executive actions that expand background checks on gun purchases and increase funding for mental health treatment. On Thursday, President Obama held a nationally televised town hall, facing off with opponents of his efforts to strengthen gun laws. And yesterday, the president unveiled a big new promise. In an op-ed in the New York Times, President Obama declared, quote, I will not campaign for, vote for, or support any candidate, even in my own party, who does not support common sense gun reform. The sum of the president's actions, all but guaranteeing that gun control will be a central issue of the 2016 campaign.
So he's going to sign another executive order having to do with the Second Amendment, having to do with guns. I will veto that. I will unsign that so fast.
His first impulse always is to take rights away from law-abiding citizens, and it's wrong.
I fully intend to delight in rescinding whatever illegal and unconstitutional executive actions President Obama takes to try to undermine our right to keep and bear arms.
Our panel's still with us right here. 2016, he's laid down the gauntlet in that op-ed. If I'm to support anybody in my party, his party is what he's saying, you better have common sense gun support.
Well, what we're hearing here in that op-ed, during that town hall forum, during his remarks at the White House, is a president who is not only frustrated, but weary. I mean, this is a man who has, as president of the United States, who has gone to a lot of these sites of mass shootings, looked the families of the victims in the eye, not only felt their pain, but grieved with them, not just one time, but how many times now? 13, 14 times in his presidency?
Yeah, many.
This is not just a political thing for the president anymore. This is, for him, I believe, a sort of a moral calling that we've got to do something so that he, in the final years as president, doesn't have to go to another town to console another grieving community.
And as all three of you know so well, the public supports for the most part, President Obama's stance here. A new CNN poll, just to give you some numbers here of the public, they agree that his executive actions to increase enforcement of existing laws to expand background checks is good, 67 to 32 percentage points. So he's really resonating with his message point, certainly. And that may be why Hillary Clinton is coming out saying in very strong words, I support that too.
These executive actions are one thing. They were actually fairly modest. They didn't actually make any meaningful legal change. So it's not surprising that there would be support. But making guns an issue in 2016 is just a horrible idea for Democrats, vulnerable Democrats, and also those states where you need to win that very much care about gun rights. Nevada, New Mexico, Iowa, Ohio, New Hampshire, Florida. In Colorado 2 years ago, 2 Democratic state senators were recalled because they voted for common sense gun reform. One was the president of the state Senate. This is not an issue that favors Democrats, and President Obama has already overseen historic losses in midterm elections. There's no need to further hurt Democrats with this in 2016.
It's a good point made, energizing the GOP base, yet it may be this, again, legacy issue where the president says, I just am tired, as you were saying here, Jonathan. I need to stand up and do this.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I also think it's pretty remarkable to see how this is not a divisive issue within the Democratic Party. I mean, think about how the Democrats are now widely in support of stricter gun laws, and that's different from 2008. But on the Republican side, you see this from the candidates, but also from people, voters, that they don't like these executive actions. All presidents use them and use them a lot. But Republicans have been able to make this even a broader issue. Immigration, we saw executive actions. John Boehner sued over those. So that is a really key issue here as well.
So Bernie Sanders, since he is the more moderate when it comes to gun rights, is he then the secret sauce, the nice medium that brings it all together?
Well, it's interesting. Bernie Sanders supporters that I've talked to are very focused on what Bernie Sanders' central message is on the economy, on not being able to get ahead, the deck being stacked. You can talk to them, and they don't want the president to focus on gun laws right at this minute.
It also speaks to how Hillary Clinton has not done a great job in New Hampshire. She's trying to position Bernie Sanders as some NRA stooge, and people there know Bernie Sanders' position on guns very well. I think he is better positioned, and it speaks to her weaknesses as a candidate to know how to position herself.
Well, and I would say that, she's tacking to the left on Bernie Sanders, and yeah, that's fine for New Hampshire. It might not work there, but she's speaking to a broader audience. And listening to the clip that we showed in the earlier hour when she went after Senator Sanders, it reminded me, in terms of structure, her argument against Bernie Sanders on guns was the same thing that was used against her on her Iraq War vote.
Okay. All right. Thank you all three for that. Up next.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.